The earth hasn't shaken like that in a long time. This isn't a good omen.
I'm here to see Her Majesty Catherine de Medici.
Enter. Her Majesty is expecting you.
You may enter.
Your Majesty?
César de Nostre-Dame, I am delighted to meet you. Your father must esteem you highly to send you to me. He must have explained to you how difficult I am to satisfy.
You were mistaken, Your Majesty. He would never have said such things.
Don't be afraid to be frank, my boy. When we are alone, I expect you to say what you mean. I need someone I can trust, and not another hypocrite. According to Chavigny, your father is the author of this quatrain. Yet, when I spoke to him of it, he didn't seem to remember. It would seem that these verses are becoming reality. I need to know how this story will turn out, and if misfortune can be avoided. A scribe has traveled from Moulins with me. He has noted all the tragic events that have occurred in recent days. He has the order to transmit to you any information you consider useful. He's waiting for you, next door.
Very well, Your Majesty. I shall do my best to solve this mystery.
I don't doubt it, César. You may leave now.
I almost forgot. It's for you. My father's idea.
He hasn't forgotten what a sweet tooth I have. Thank him for thinking of it, and thank you for preparing it. Go now. You have much to do.
César? You're really him?
To be sure.
I thought you'd be older. I'm surprised.
Don't worry. My father wouldn't have sent me in his place if he hadn't thought I was up to the task.
I didn't mean to offend you, sir. Your youth does you honor. Her Majesty asked me to give you this. These are the notes I took concerning the strange events of the last few days.
Can you give me a brief summary of what happened?
Of course. On March 20th, the chambermaid of Princess Marguerite was found dead. The circumstances were suspicious. The next day, it was young Henry of Navarre's tutor. We all know that one misfortune leads to another, and that our Lord certainly has his reasons for calling his children back to him. But when, over the following 2 days, a lady companion of Her Majesty Catherine de Medici, as well as the personal chef of King Charles IX, died in turn, the Queen Mother convened Jean-Aimé de Chavigny to ask his advice. That is how she came to learn of the quatrain written by your father, and decided to leave Moulins and the court to consult him.
Did you notice any particular connection among the deceased?
They all belonged to the retinue of the royal family, and therefore must have known each other. But beyond that, I don't see anything special permitting to establish a connection among them. But perhaps you will find helpful details in my notes. You know, I do not spend much time in the company of my fellow men. so sometimes I have a hard time understanding them.
Since your arrival, have there been any new incidents?
Unfortunately, yes. Yesterday, Her Majesty's coachman, and this morning, the castle librarian.
You mean the latest victim is not part of the royal retinue?
It's true. I hadn't thought of that. But it's probably not very significant. The curse is following Her Majesty. There are but 4 deaths left, my young friend, before evil strikes the royal family itself. Let us hope you can thwart the plans of the devil, with the help of God.
Could I see the bodies of the coachman and of the librarian, and also the places where they found them?
The librarian, Philibert, was found in the scriptorium, but I had him carried to the chapel to prepare him for burial. So start by visiting the library. It's just at the bottom of the stairway. You'll see that the accident that killed him caused a great deal of damage.
And the coachman?
He has already been buried. What with fear of the plague, bodies have to be got rid of quickly.
I understand. Thank you for your assistance. Did you know the librarian?
Only slightly. We exchanged a few words, but nothing important. I only know that he'd been here just 10 days or so, and had a lot of work. The Archdiocese has many precious works, but till now, nothing had been done to classify them properly.
Without the birth date, it's impossible to determine the astrological sign. The zodiac isn't complete, yet the astrological signs of the victims seem to follow in order. That must be where the librarian's body was found. There might be something important to discover. It's locked. Perhaps it contains some of the librarian's things. Now, that's better. At last I'll be able to examine up close the place where that poor Philibert died. Well before the Romans occupied France, the Celts, a pagan people from the north, claimed to be able to predict the future. It is said they built many underground temples, where they conducted dark ceremonies. So, Philibert was interested in the Celts and their temples. It's surprising that he'd spend time on this sort of thing when the scribe said he had so much to do since his arrival. He didn't lose enough blood to die from that. He must have passed away due to an internal injury. These books are magnificent. Luckily, they weren't damaged in the fall. Given the fall they've suffered, they ought to be in pitiful shape. These books are magnificent. Luckily, they weren't damaged in the fall. Given the fall they've suffered, they ought to be in pitiful shape. Strange, this pile of sawdust. That's what I thought. The break is too clean to be due to wear. Someone sawed this shelf. Philibert's death was therefore no accident. But who within these walls would have a reason to kill him?
Have you found anything interesting?
Jean-Aimé. I should have suspected you'd not be far away. I'm delighted to see you again in Salon.
I as well, young César. You've changed a great deal since our last meeting, and you must have made great strides, too, for your father to send you in his place, unless he's really in very poor health.
You can go visit him if you're worried about him. He'll be delighted to show you he's not yet an invalid. But to get back to this case, I've actually discovered that the librarian's death wasn't accidental. In any case, the shelf didn't fall on its own. It was sawed through.
Barely arrived and you already suspect a murder. You don't waste any time.
I'm merely observing. I'll draw my conclusions later. I haven't even examined the poor man's body yet.
It's in the chapel. I won't go with you. I've just come from there. And besides a head injury that must have caused his death, Philibert doesn't have much to show us anymore.
I'll make sure of that myself.
Well then, see you later, César. If you need help, I'll be in my office. Being the son of a talented man has never helped anyone prove intelligent.
I'll remember that.
I was joking, you know that. Oh, say hello to your charming sister when you get the chance. If she hadn't been a woman, I'm sure your father would have sent her instead of you.
Hey, it looks as if Jean-Aimé wasn't as rigorous in his observations as he'd like us to think. This confirms what I saw in the library. This wound scarcely bled. It was certainly not the cause of death. If I had any doubts left, they're gone now. Poison is the only explanation for the condition of his tongue. I wonder how this detail could have eluded Jean-Aimé, and especially, why go to so much trouble to make believe it was an accident? There's clearly someone around who has no problem taking things into his own hands. This closet must have contained something important if it was forced open like this. But what? Looks like that burglar forgot something. What's happening to me? It looked like the dead librarian. All that's left is to piece together what was erased. What do you know? Looks like I found it. AMP 45. I wonder if it's best for me to see Chavigny as César or as myself.
César, I didn't expect to see you so soon.
I thought I heard you offer your help a little while ago, but maybe you've already forgotten.
Very well, I'm listening. What do you need?
Information, Jean-Aimé. Just some information. Philibert was interested in pagan rites. He was reading a text on Celtic oracles. Don't tell me you didn't notice it on his table.
Yes, I did indeed see it. The man had an obsession. He was convinced that this village used to be home to a vast community of pagan sorcerers. I think he was looking for their sanctuary.
And did he find it?
Certainly not. Those are mere fantasies. Absurd. Imagine, hidden underground sanctuaries, spirits. The man was just a heretic, a little crazier than the others.
In your opinion, who might have wanted to rummage through the affairs of a dead librarian, if not his assassin?
So, you still think it was murder?
His tongue is black. No need to open his stomach to know he was poisoned. I'm actually surprised you didn't notice anything when you studied the body.
Am I to understand you suspect me? Out of respect for your father and your sister, I'll not skew you on the spot. But leave this room immediately. We've nothing more to discuss.
Very well, Jean-Aimé, I'll go. But you won't be able to avoid the difficult questions forever.
Madeleine, I'm delighted to see you. I hope you don't share your brother's suspicions about me.
In fact, I think that you and César should learn to get along. I'm not here to settle your quarrels. He's very busy, so I'm helping him a bit. And also, I took advantage of the opportunity to say hello to you.
Ah, a pleasant phrase at last. Well then, tell me how I can help you.
I want to learn more about Philibert. Did you know him at all?
Barely. I ran into him twice in the library, but he seemed very busy with his new job.
And besides organizing and maintaining the books, what else did his work consist of?
Oh, he was doubtless in charge of acquiring new books.
Do you know if he was writing a book himself? About pagan traditions, for example?
You'd do better to ask that question of your brother. He seems to know a lot about the subject.
Who discovered the body?
Me, very early this morning. He was stuck under the shelf, but his skin color told me instantly he was dead.
What position was he in?
Bent in two, as if he'd been seated at his table when the accident happened. My goodness, you take your part very seriously.
Yes, I try to. I really want to help my brother. This case is far from simple.
Let him do a bit on his own, then. Anyway, young lady, you'll get nothing more from me, at least as far as this sorry business is concerned.
Then goodbye for now, dear Jean-Aimé.
Well, how did your encounter with Catherine de Medicis go?
Not too well, to tell the truth. But she still entrusted me with the quatrain that's at the root of the case.
Well then?
Morning on the court shall fall, when 12 times catastrophe has told. One by one, in their tombs they lie deplored, soon joined by those whom the queen adored.
I understand why she's worried, though I don't remember writing that quatrain. Well, my memory plays tricks on me, but to that extent. Do you know where she got it?
Yes, from Chavigny.
Jean-Aimé, how is he? Did you see him?
He doesn't seem to be in a bad situation. But why did you part ways with him?
He wanted to accompany the court on its tour of France, but he was to come back one day or another.
It can't be said that his return is occurring under the most favorable of auspices.
To be sure. Did you notice anything else that's important?
I'm afraid that in the Queen's entourage, there's someone helping the prophecy come true.
What do you mean?
It seems that the librarian was poisoned. His tongue is black, and his wound hardly bled at all.
To be sure, but don't exclude fatality too quickly. There are those who would say that men are but the instruments of destiny, and that your discovery doesn't contradict the existence of a curse.
I recovered information on each of those in the Queen's entourage who died recently.
Very good. Were you able to deduct anything from that?
Except for Philibert, the chateau librarian, they all belong to the royal family's retinue.
Nothing else?
Yes. It looks like the victims died in the order of the zodiac. Their birth dates are not all known, but those that are seem to corroborate this thesis.
And what about the librarian?
I couldn't find anything in his personal effects allowing me to determine when he was born, but someone got there before me and forced open his closet.
Sounds as though things are getting more complicated.
If you could remember if you wrote that quatrain or not, it would help me a great deal.
To be honest, there's something in the verses that rings familiar, but I can't be sure they're mine.
Do you think that Chavigny could have lied?
There's only one way to find out. Certain products alter consciousness and permit deeply buried memories to emerge. As soon as night falls, go and find a mandrake. Generally, they grow under gallows and must be picked in moonlight.